December 19, 2017 meeting of the Sunset Beach Town Council. There's nothing to report, as no actions can be taken at this time out of the closed session. It's not in the agenda, but before we get into the item number 4, there are a couple of announcements that I have to make that, and the council may have some others. One thing I do have to say, does any member of council have a conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest with regard to any item on the agenda? If so, please state at this time. No statements. I presume there is none, or that we're not aware of any. I was at a mayor's, my comments, I was at a mayor's meeting, I think it was last week or the week before. It was a county mayor's meeting. The prime subject was the fire service within the county. Representative Eiler gave a brief analysis of legislation. Ann Hardy, the county administrator, explained the commission that had been established. It's a temporary stopgap measure that the county commissioners established. They've represented that there's no foregone conclusions, but the intent was that they'd come forward with advisory recommendations, and that may result in some recommendations for ongoing monitoring with regard to fire service. The commission, as I understand it, is made up of different segments, some public officials, some private citizens, some those are those who are involved in the firefighting. On my question, it was represented to me that the membership in the commission is going to change periodically, so they get a full review from all the places within the county. They talked about, they did a fire study this summer. They talked about funding options. That was it about with regard to the, and we'll receive periodic reports about the recommendations of this commission. Two other things we talked about was that they're constructing another water line to pump water. It's going to become a redundant system to the one that presently exists that will be complete in fiscal year 19. That will avoid the problem that we had last year with the break in the water line. This is going to become redundant to that one. We talked a little bit about the Gen X situation, and just wanted to emphasize that when you look at reports and studies and whatnot with regard to Gen X, you have to keep in mind that it is not a one event thing. It's the impact of Gen X is cumulative. It's not based on what presently exists. It's what accumulates over time. The other comment that I wanted to make was, I've been asked to join, and I've said that I would do it. I just want to let the council object if they want to a letter from the Brunswick County mayors to oppose the proposed 25% increase in property insurance rates for residents in the coastal communities. If you're aware, the Commissioner of Insurance has received application from the entity that represents the insurance company for a 25% increase in insurance rates for coastal communities, not interior, just coastal communities. And there's been a letter circulated that mayors have been, in Brunswick County have been requested to join. I said that I would join, and this is all happening as I speak, because there hasn't been a public hearing. There was a hearing that was held in December, but nobody was aware of it. That also that there's a December 29th drop dead date for comments. So, and the only way the mayors became aware of it was a article in a local paper last Wednesday. This doesn't mean that it's a done deal, but we just want to voice our opposition in any event.
Mr. Mayor, do we need a resolution for that?
Well, I'm signing it as a mayor. I don't, if you want, it's fine if you want.
I think it's a good idea that we at least give you a consensus,
Okay.
and I consent.
Do I hear any objection?
No.
Okay.
There's also, just as a follow on it, the Beacon article had an email that private citizens can use to express their concerns also on the insurance rate hike. And so if you,
Other than asking for any objections, would you like to?
Oh, you have a motion then?
See if everybody agrees with your position?
Okay, I have a motion that the council agree with my position in joining in the opposition.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. The first item on the agenda is,
Well,
I'm sorry.
if
Other
we're doing-
comments?
If we're doing committee reports.
Yeah, well, other comments.
Okay. I attended last week the GSAT meeting. That's the Grand Strand Transportation Authority meeting. The main thing that affects us is sort of, as I reported from the previous quarterly meeting, there is a fund available from federal money that has accumulated up to $1.6 million that can be allocated to local projects. In January, and this is primarily to make sure the staff's aware, in January, guidelines will be put out on what can be competed for and what kind of criteria is necessary. And then probably several months later, they will actually go through and they'll provide a date for submission of proposals. And 1.6 million essentially can cover about one major intersection project. It can cover some bike lanes and sidewalks, and the $100,000 grant we got earlier in the year was from GSAT, the same fund. It's not part of the 1.6 million that's left. Or it can do studies. So that's money available for us to think about and figure how we can compete for it. Thank you.
Any other reports, comments?
I
Next.
do have a comment, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Charlie.
Actually, a couple of them. Before I was sworn in, everybody that was everybody that was on the council at the time and the newly.
Make sure that's on, Charlie.
The newly elected members got an anonymous letter. I just want to let everybody know that if you send me an anonymous letter, it goes right in the recycle bin. If you can't sign what you want to send, then it's not worth reading. Now, nicer things. The Sunset Vision and the Committee to Honor America's Veterans put up, along with Susan, put up lights and along the ropes at the park, and finally got hooked up yesterday. It looked great. And then lastly, the fire department. I asked about changing the batteries in my smoke detectors at home because I shouldn't be on a ladder anymore. I was asked how old the batteries were, and I said, how the detectors were, and they said, I said 17 years, and oh, you got to get new ones. So 2 guys from the fire department came down, took one of the old ones down, so I could compare. When I went to buy the new ones, I bought the new ones, I called them back. They took care of everything. And that wasn't just a service for me because I'm on the council. That's something available to everybody in the town. And I'm very happy with that. So take advantage of them. They don't mind. Thank you.
All right, the next item on the agenda is minutes approval for November 10th, the 21st, and the 4th. Anybody have any comments with regard to that?
I do. On the minutes for December the 4th, under old business B, budget amendment for Living Shoreline. I don't have a problem with the minutes, except when you look at the meeting packet, the staff report states, quote, $34,950 grant check from the North Carolina Community Foundation. Is that not supposed to be the North Carolina Coastal Federation?
No,
It's Community Foundation? Is this not for the park
it is, but we
restoration?
didn't. It is, but we didn't receive a grant from Coastal Federation. We received a grant from the North Carolina
But
Community
North Carolina
Foundation.
Coastal Federation did help you with that grant?
Yes, they did,
Okay, thanks.
but they did not. That's not from them.
Okay.
Mhm.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to approve the agenda minutes for the 10th.
All right, we have a motion. Any other discussion? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Now is the opportunity for public comments on agenda items only. I request that you state, if you have a comment, you state your name and address. Step forward, state your name and address, and try and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Sir? It's on.
Good morning. My name is Ron LeBruno. I currently reside at 908 Resort Circle, which is the Colony 2, in the process of moving to 9121 Ocean Harbor Golf Club Road, which is in Harbor Landing, the west end of the mainland. I'm the president of the Harbor Landing Property Owners Association. And for a matter of disclosure and transparency, I'm a recent appointee to the planning board. But I'm here representing as a private citizen and as the POA president. I'm here to discuss agenda item 6, old business H, ordinance section 93.01, particularly concerning the weeds, grass, and undergrowth parts of that ordinance on vacant lots. Basically, I find that part of that ordinance, ill-conceived, overbearing. It's prejudicial to the mainland, and I think a completely waste of town resources. It states in the ordinance in section A that the growth of weeds, grass, undergrowth, and other noxious growth on an unimproved lot or unimproved parcel of land to a height in excess of 4 inches is hereby declared dangerous or prejudiced to the public health and safety. And I guess my question on that is based on who and what? There's no science to that. And 4 inches? When Phil's done bush hawking, it's more than 4 inches. That's basically, this is really an aesthetics ordinance concerning this. It has nothing to do with public health and welfare. Second of all, the gross differences and prejudicial to the mainland, where paragraph 1 says the mainland has to mow twice a year and maintain ground cover below 4 inches, which is a wooden lot. That's really never probably true. And apparently the island gets to go to 12 inches and only gets a violation when someone complains to them. So my question to the council is why the prejudicial difference between the island and the mainland?
You're talking about the proposed.
Proposed
Yes. Okay.
differences there. And certainly it appears to be no differentiation to what it used to be between a lot that's adjacent to an approved lot versus a lot that's adjacent to agricultural land or in the middle of the woods. It just seems nonsensical to be mowing lots that are in the middle of the woods versus lots that may be between 2 improved lots, houses, etc. So, in the big difference, 4 inches on the mainland and 12 inches on the island, and plus the island don't get a violation until somebody complains. But in mainland, apparently we have our Public Works Department driving around inspecting lots, and I did some back of the napkins calculations, and they can comment on it. I'm looking at they're spending more than 120 hours a year inspecting lots, writing violation letters, doing follow-up calls, doing re-inspections, and just at that rate, at $50 an hour, the village is expending $6,000 a year just to hit up people on weeds that may be in the middle of the woods and not obnoxious to any neighbors or anybody. So I think there's some strong, consideration here to reconsider this ordinance and change that, because you certainly reduce the value of land on the mainland, because the cost for mowing these lots twice a year I think is more than my property tax. So,
Okay.
appreciate your time.
Thank you. Other public comment? Agenda items? None appearing, we'll move on to the next. Old business, the discussion of the Island West End Property Memorandum of Agreement. Council?
Would you like for me just to give an overview of what
Yes,
the
sir.
agreement's about?
This is for the public information.
So the agreement, the first thing that it did was take the pending litigation between the town and the alleged other, or the defendants, and place it into an active status. That was obtained, I believe, on December 8th. I believe the judge was Thomas Locke in Brunswick County Civil Superior Court. On joint motion of the parties to the lawsuit, the case was placed into inactive status, which basically means it's on hold and nothing is happening and nothing prejudicial will occur to either party in the lawsuit as the parties pursue the contemplated and desired settlement of the litigation. If the settlement goes through, it will require the state of North Carolina's cooperation, purchase and acquisition of the subject property, and it will also require restrictions on the property that will be every bit as much, and I believe probably more restrictive than even Bird Island Sanctuary as a conservation. The land will never be developed. Things such as walkways and platforms and things of that sort are actually listed in the agreement as not being allowed. It will be in a pure vegetative state as the contemplated settlement of this. It requires obviously the state to do what the parties are hoping it will do, and if the state does, then the town would also presumably execute a deed to the state conveying its claimed interest in the property, and the lawsuit will be resolved. The companion administrative challenges with the Office of Administrative Hearing, they are also in a holding status. Nothing prejudicial will occur to those either. I've communicated the settlement terms to the petitioners in those OAH hearings who are very pleased with the possible outcome of this litigation and think, like I do, that it is a great outcome for everyone that visits and resides in the town of Sunset Beach, as well as the citizens of the state of North Carolina. Any other questions or things you think I need to cover?
I don't think so.
It's a public record. I think it's on the website.
It's on the website.
And everyone is free to review it if they wish.
Does council have any reason to expect we need to keep Mr. Richardson around for the rest of the meeting?
No, I'd just like to say that Attorney Richardson did a great job on this. We're very proud of him.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay, Grady, thank you.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to all of
Merry
you.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
The next item is open meetings rules discussion. What really is that about?
I don't know. I think Jan wants to speak of the open meeting discussions.
Yeah, I do. I've gone through.
Mike?
Can you hear me?
No. You gotta,
It's not on. Oh, it says it's on.
Thank you.
We have so much to learn.
We had in our packet, Sunset Beach Town Council Rules of Procedure. And
closer.
I've read
There you go.
I've read through them, and I'd like to go to page 5, rule number 10, where a second is not required. I think we need a second, because if a motion is made and it's not worth a second, it's probably not worth discussing and taking up the public's time. You don't have to vote yes on a subject that you second. You're not required to do that. I just think that we can shorten some of our discussions by having a second to a motion. The next issue I have with these is rule number 15 states, to the extent permitted by law, no, that's not the next one I wanted to go to. I think, yes, it is. No, I'm sorry, it's number 14. Number B, under 14, a member who has not spoken on the issue shall be recognized before someone who has already spoken. I'm not sure we're following that procedure.
We're definitely not following it.
Okay, I think we should. And then the last one that I had an issue with is motion 10, motion for the previous question. Is this the same thing? I guess I need to ask somebody. Is this the same thing as calling the question? And for the people in the audience, the motion is not in order until there have been at least 10 minutes of debate and every member has had an opportunity to speak once. I assume that means that if there's been 10 minutes of debate and every member has spoken, one of us can call the question. Is that?
I believe that's the intent
Okay.
of it.
Okay.
In keeping with this, the item C, 6C, is also meeting procedures, Robert's Rules of Order. Those resulted from conversations that were had at the last council meeting. I circulated an email to the members of council following that meeting with a copy of the present procedural rules and asking that they submit any changes to those rules to Lisa. Not that they discuss it among themselves, but they submit them to Lisa. There wasn't anything substantive that Lisa received. I've had individual discussions with, I don't know if it's with each member of council. I think the major concern was the second for the motions. Not that there weren't concerns with the other things you mentioned, but as far as the Robert's Rules issue was, that, because Robert's Rules is, if you really read Robert's Rules, it's very exacting and would really circumscribe our conduct of our meetings for a coastal town. Does anybody have any comments with regard to what Councilwoman Harris has said and the question of adopting Robert's Rules?
I
do.
have no problems as far as the second. I'm totally against Robert rules. We're a small quorum, and I disagree with you. A small quorum like this, Robert rules has a lot of negatives, and I will not vote for Robert's rules.
Charlie?
Yeah, I was the one who brought this question up at the last meeting, and after looking over rules for procedure and going back and finding a couple other things from before, I was making an attempt to bring common sense and civility back to the council meetings. We don't need Robert's Rules of Orders. I just used that. But I've read the rules and procedures several times, and I've found past resolutions. One is adopting a code of ethics for the mayor and council. That was October 2010. And the second was town council local rules for meetings, December 2013. And I'm going to paraphrase some of these points in order to get to the gist of what we all need to remember. All speakers should address the chair to be recognized. Avoid personalities, stay on subject. I remember when the mayor gave an explanation of agenda item and then called on each council member in turn for their comments. No member is allowed to interrupt another member while they are speaking. Mayor and council must be able to act in a manner that maintains their integrity, independence, and professional decorum. Mayor and council must be aware of their obligation to conform their behavior to standards of ethical conduct that warrant the trust of their constituents. Mayor and council should be guided by the spirit as well as the letter of the law. Mayor and council should demonstrate the highest standards of personal integrity, truthfulness, honesty, and respect towards others. Mayor and council should treat other members and the public with respect and honor the opinions of others even when they disagree. Mayor and council should act as especially responsible citizens whom others can trust and respect. Mayor and council should faithfully attend and prepare for the meetings. I would not vote for Robert's rules. I think everything we have here covers whatever we need. Thank you.
I think the motion,
What?
Jan wants to add a second.
Well,
Wait a minute.
Oh, I didn't hear a motion.
my turn?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I agree that we do not need Robert Rules of Orders. Our rules of procedures are comprehensive and work very well. With one clear exception, I would support putting back into our rules the requirement to have a second to a motion.
What would be the exception? You said with one exception you would agree.
Well, that I want
Yeah.
this, I want a.
Oh, you want,
the-
okay, all right,
I want to put back in
Okay.
the requirement for an exception, a
It-
second to a motion.
okay. Anybody else have any other comment? All right, you want to
I
put that
would
in the
like
form
to
of a vote?
move that we put a second back into our rules, a second to a motion back into our rules,
All right.
and also that we adhere to the rule where a council person does not speak the second time until everyone has spoken one time.
I've pointed that out in the past and tried to enforce it. It's extremely difficult to do, but we all ought to be reminded of it.
Do a better job.
Well, with you sitting next to me, I hope you
Yeah.
don't
Now I
make
got
me
my
do it. We've had discussion. I don't know if we need any other discussion, but if anybody wants to say anything, any more discussion, it's now or I'll call for a vote. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, make that change.
All right, we gotta remember now, we gotta second the motion.
We've gone over Robert's rules. I didn't mean to usurp anybody's comments on it, but I don't think we need to waste a whole lot of time on that discussion of that in light of the prior discussion. The 6E is the appoint Fireman Relief Fund Board member.
Mr. Mayor, item D.
Wait, D, I'm sorry. Fire Department staffing analysis and comparison.
Good morning.
Morning.
What Richard just gave you is staffing analysis comparison to the departments that were willing to cooperate with me or get it in time for us to have this meeting. I assume that meets your criteria, Mr. Serrato. It's a comparison of pretty much the departments that are right around us, except the exception being Tri-Beach, which is Holden Beach's department, and St. James. As you can see, we're all just about the same. A little bit more call volume here in Shallotte and Calabash. Everybody else is right around the same. You see everybody has down there that they will be adding more staff. Calabash especially will be doing 3. Shallotte is requesting 1 more full-time.
I have a question. Why do we have 13,000 people in the town?
We
That-
don't have 13,000 people in the town. According to, I don't cover just the town.
I understand that.
Yeah, we have 13,000. It's probably a little more than 13,000 in our fire district.
Their district
I
numbers.
understand.
And the town has, according to the census, around 4,400 people.
Right.
And that's on what's going on right now, and they won't know it till they do the next true census for the town. But, you know, I've talked to each one of these chiefs, other than Ocean Isle Beach and Holden Beach, which are very comparable to our two departments. We all do the same thing. Shallotte, they don't get in the water. They don't do water rescue. They don't have anything to do with the water other than their little canal that runs through Shallotte, the little river. They don't do boats. If they need a boat, they call Ocean Isle, or they call us or somebody else. Calabash has just recently got into the water, but a large portion of their water is in South Carolina. So basically all they do is mutual aid. They have the river and that's it. The one thing that differs between us and Shallotte, because I know Shallotte was one that was brought up the last time, is everybody goes, well, they're such a large facility, they're, you know, they're a big area. Their hub is right down Main Street. You see everything they got. They run one station, they have 3 guys on an engine, and I live there, so I know what comes. When they come to my house, they're empty. They have nothing else left. They have people responding back to cover, where we don't have that option. And the other thing that they don't have is they don't have the multifamily that we have. They don't have the 6-story buildings. They don't have the 5-story buildings that we have. And the big thing is, you know, everybody's wanting to say is every one of these departments on here has put, except for St. James, which is 100% volunteer, has put, we need additional staff. We're putting on additional staff. Calabash, right next door, they're hiring right now. They have an ad out in the paper. They are opening their second station, and they are going to staff it. They've had a second station that's been unstaffed for, I think it's been 5 or 6 years. It's not been staffed, but the population has started to grow in that direction, and he is going to have to staff that station. They've also built a nursing home out in the middle of the woods out there, Second Autumn Care. Tri-Beach, which is a little more close to where we are, is at 13 full-time people. They have 3 stations. They only man 2. The third station is a beach station, which they only put staffing, and they put part-time staffing in it in the summertime. And it's on the west end of their beach. They do a lot of water calls, but their call volume is not as heavy as ours, even though they have a larger area. A lot of their area is empty. It's sitting out there. Everybody's drove down through Supply. You see a lot of empty lots and a lot of forest. We have a little bit of forest left, but not very much. And our call volume is up more than it is right now. I don't even have December's numbers in, but we're going up every year. Last year's numbers are not going to look the same. We had a hurricane in the middle of last year, and that really jumped our call volume up. Is there any questions about?
I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
Could you explain a little bit about the volunteer program? What's the difference? We have 10 total and 6 active. So what is the criteria there for being on the list but not being active, or being active? And then when and how do they get paid? I mean,
volunteers only get paid if they respond. And that is, you know, they
If
get
they
per.
respond, so they're not on the payroll or anything else? There's
No,
no
they're not
holding
getting paid unless they respond to an incident or training.
So is
And
that active or is that total? I mean, so the active,
we have 10 that are on there as volunteers.
and they don't
6
get
of
paid
that 10.
unless they make a call.
Yeah, they only get money if they come back, if they show up for a call or a training. That's why I've got 6 are active.
How much is that per call?
It varies, depends on their certification. If they're completely certified in fire and can make an interior attack, they get $12 per call. If they're not certified in anything, I think they get 10, is that correct? Or 8? 10, we moved it to 10, it's 10
That's per call.
per call.
So guy's gonna be a volunteer.
But
he's gonna
they
put on
only
the
get
gear to go
paid-
running
they
into
only
a
get-
fire,
they only get
a
paid
house
for
on
fire calls.
$12.
They don't get paid for every medical that comes out. I mean, medicals we handle on our own. They're not responding back for medical calls. Now, if they're at the station and they run a medical, you know, and they're helpful on it, they do get some compensation.
So if they're at the station cleaning the trucks and all that, they're not being paid.
You can't shake your head, we can't hear it rattle. The answer's no.
What's that?
You can't shake your head, you have to say no. Your
No.
answer was no. You
No,
don't get paid.
I don't
No,
know.
they don't get paid.
Kevin, we have mutual aid with all of these, maybe except for, I don't know, St. James
And Tri-Beach, we don't mutual aid with
and
those.
Tri-Beach.
No, but everybody else we mutual aid with.
All right,
You want me to explain the mutual aid a little bit? Are you asking me to explain it?
No,
Oh.
no, I just wanted to, just a confirmation. Mr. Mayor, in my Scrooge way.
Before you get into it,
Sure.
is anybody have any more questions of Kevin with regard to this report?
No, Kevin, I think it's a good report, thank you. It's exactly what we're looking for.
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
Well, I actually,
But-
one
all
more,
right, go
just
ahead.
clarification. You added 3 new firemen. Those were the ones that got approved earlier this year?
Yes,
with
sir.
the increase
Well,
in
actually,
fees?
yes, we did.
And-
We had
and-
an opening already.
And did you fill out all your other openings?
Everything's
Are you
filled.
fully manned
We're
based
fully-
on what we're budgeted for? at
We're
this
fully
point in
manned.
time?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
okay, Councilman.
These people that we recently recruited, because the additional firemen were approved on October 17th, if I recall. These 3 additional firemen, they came from other fire departments? I mean, how?
One of them left Calabash and came over here. The other 3 are from,
3 or 2? Well, what you had a,
we had an opening from
you had a vacancy.
Yes, we had a vacancy, and we filled that from a gentleman from Tri-Beach, actually. He came over from Tri-Beach, one came from Calabash.
Yeah.
And the other, they came from, they're out of the state, Charlotte area. They came out of Charlotte.
Okay, so-
Indian Trail and Denton, I think, are the 2 towns they came from.
Because I was always led to believe that recruiting firemen was sometimes difficult. And I was just amazed how quickly we hired them.
We have quite a few departments in the area. Leland, we have several
Yeah.
departments right now that are searching for firemen, and the word got out pretty quick. I mean, we had 14 people put in.
That many.
When we had the original ad out, we had 14 people
When you had the
put in.
original vacancy.
The original vacancy had 14 people put out. And then when we came back in, it was approved, so we went ahead and, instead of re-advertising, we already had 14 candidates to pull from.
So you were a step ahead of the game anyway.
Yes.
Great.
The quick response, basically, I understand what you're saying, is was a result or a partial result of the fact that you were in the process of filling that vacancies,
Yes, sir.
not the 3 new ones, but the existing vacancies.
Yeah, the existing vacancy, yes.
No, I can assume all these people that came from other departments, maybe in Calabash, that they received a salary increase. They got a little more in their paycheck.
That's a question I did not ask, but I'm assuming the gentleman that came over, I think his main goal was to return back into the local government. They're not a local government in Calabash, they are a private corporation, so he does not receive the local government benefits. And the same thing with Tri-Beach. The only 2 other local governments on my survey are Ocean Isle Beach and Shallotte. Everybody else is a private corporation on this.
Mr. Mayor, every time we talk about public safety, sometimes it becomes, to me, an emotional issue. I'm still having Scrooge pains that the only reason why we seem to be hiring these people is because we received additional money from the fire fee tax. And in government, I have learned that when you get additional money, you find ways to spend it. I'm having a hard time in this tiny town with all of this mutual aid, having 17 firemen,
All right, well-
full-time firemen. This is my opinion,
All
Mr.
right,
Mayor.
but if to discuss, to do something about it is another issue. This was to review the information that the chief was to provide. If we're gonna do something to act on it, we don't necessarily need him. Does this report provide the information that you were looking for?
You asking me that?
Yeah, you were the
Yes.
one that was asking for the information.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Then, thanks, chief. Now, if you want to do something in reliance on the information, then we need to put it on there for discussion and take action on it.
Well, I'd like to put it on the January agenda to discuss it. Right now, we just got the information. I'd like to look
Yeah,
at
no,
it.
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
If you just take it now, it's.
Can we have
you
a
know,
discussion on January 8th regarding the
8th,
fire?
I don't know what else we have on the 8th. Let's put it for the,
23rd?
no, at the end of the meeting, let's consider what else we got
Okay.
listed. And, okay, any other questions of the chief? None? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is the appointment of Firemen's Relief Fund Board Member. You received the memo. There's expiration of a term from Alan Rundle. He's the only person that applied to fill the new term.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to file a motion to reappoint Mr. Rundle
Second.
to the Firemen's Relief Fund Board.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next
Thank you,
i-
Charlie.
Next item is the ABC Board member, which I'm going to move to January 23 because all the interviews hadn't been completed. I don't know whether it's her availability or,
Meet next week. Lisa, when are we having the interviews?
This afternoon?
Today, right?
After the meeting.
Today, right after the meeting.
that's the interview for this, I don't
I
care
mean,
whether,
we could do the appointment at the first meeting in January,
all right, I don't care.
right?
January.
The next item is appointment of the GSAT's TAC member and alternate member. Councilman Corbett is present, is the alternate member. Former Councilman Larkin was the member.
Could I
Mr.
make a
Ma-
comment?
Sure.
I would like to continue as the alternate member and have somebody appointed as the primary member,
You want to stay as the alternate?
as the alternate, not as the primary.
Charlie, would you like to be the member?
No.
Ms. Harris, would you like to be the member?
Not especially. I have something else that I would like to do, but
I'll volunteer to be a member.
Hmm?
I can be a member, right?
Yeah.
All right, I'll be the member. I mean, I'll
Half
step
the
up.
people on the committee are mayors,
Yeah.
so.
Mr. Mayor, would like to file a motion to appoint Mayor Robert Forrester as the town's representative for the Grand Strand Transportation Study, and Councilman Corbett as the alternate.
second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? My wife's not gonna like that. The next item is the consideration of ordinance 93.01 on the keeping premises clean, amending the ordinance to keep premises clean. You've received a memo with proposed changed language to change to the ordinance. Does anybody have any questions? I mean, if we've all read it, we know what it says.
I had a couple, you know, I hadn't considered everything that Mr. Bruno had brought up in the meeting, but I did have one is, I didn't quite understand why on item A2, page 1 of the, that the inspections were, or the vegetation area was only between April and September. I think if we're gonna, you know, set a max height for the vegetation, it should be year-round. The second part that I had was, I really didn't like the idea that only violations that were reported by citizens would be the basis for determining that. I mean, just our DPW goes out twice a month all over the town and drives by just in the course of picking up leaves and limbs, and would easily see when there's a piece of property where vegetation has grown above 12 inches. So I kind of think it's year-round, and I think not just citizens, but town members and DPW should be also identifying problem areas. And I don't know the basis of why there's a difference in the rules between the mainland and the island. I think, you know, the rules would be.
Why is there 4 inches and 12 inches, as John's saying?
The 4 inches is to shrub it down to within 4 inches.
Yeah.
Once it reaches to a maximum height of 12 inches on the island, as you see, that's when it has to be cut.
At least 4 inches.
Yes, it has to be cut down to also to within 4 inches of the ground.
If, I have a little bit of experience in this, having been involved with the Rules Committee at Sea-Trail. The enforcement is extremely difficult. Of the present rules is extremely difficult, and there's a different dynamic on vacant lots on the mainland and vacant lots on the island. There's far more substantial tree growth on the mainland than there is on the island. And you run into all kinds of issues with vines and substantial brush type growth, not just grass growth. So even though the lots are vacant, some of them haven't been tended for 10 years. Some of the people I've talked to, when I send them a violation notice, because the rules in Sea-Trail have mirror those in the town, I get a response, well, I haven't been down there in 10 years, I don't know what it looks like, can you send me a picture of it? And that applies on the island as well, maybe not 10 years, but people are not as cognizant of what it really looks like as but in any event, the character of the vacant lots, not all of them, but the number of them on the mainland is different than the character on the island. I don't know if that's enough to make a distinction between enforcement or height limitations or whatever.
Dustin, is it hard for you to monitor these lots if you're going by them once or twice a month? If you see a violation, can we just report it in? I mean,
Well,
it's
see,
still
my
going to be a
guys-
majority of people complaining.
See, well, with my staff, my guys, when they're out there doing leaf and limb, they really don't know the addresses or where it's at, like I do. Just like Ocean Harbor, you got a lot of vacant lots today. It's very hard to determine what lot is where. So I have to go, I'm the one that goes out with a map and have to determine what lots has to be done. And so that's,
If you see a clear violation.
yes, if I
you
see
do
a clear
it.
violation and it's not in compliance with the ordinance, yes, we send letters.
Okay.
When you cut the shrubbery down, it really doesn't take care of everything. The house next door to mine had all kinds of trees. There was the one tree in the lot, and it half down, vines growing up everywhere around it, and day and night you could see rats. So they called the county, who takes care of rat control, I believe, and they were told, we'll put rat poison out. 3 days later, they buried 60-some rats. So this is a safety and health problem. He finally paid somebody, and the town corresponded with the older person who owned the lot. She didn't quite understand everything, and the town sent the letters. She responded as best she could. The town cut the lot, but nothing around that tree. So my neighbor finally paid to have it taken down himself and all the brush cleared. So this doesn't cover everything. And I think it comes under what the mayor said about people talking about vines and trees and all that. I don't know, maybe it's not strong enough to take care of situations like that one.
The same situation behind my house, Charlie. It's just, I think once it gets over 12 inches, it just breeds rats.
Yeah.
So I think we
Snakes.
should avoid that.
I gotta tell you, I work midnights in DC, and I never saw that many rats in one place.
In DC, they're in the White House.
It seems that, well,
No, there's the
it
Congress.
seems, it seems that we have a number of questions here. Is it appropriate to send this back to the planning board
It is.
and let Mr. Bruno fix it?
No, it's not a
No, they
planning
don't,
board.
they don't go to planning
It's
board.
not a planning board.
This is not a planning board, it's me.
This is your ordinance.
This is me, this is
Your
town
Send it back to
ordinance.
Dustin, make it a little
It's
tighter.
not the UDO.
Yeah, show, what would you like to see, like the vines? Because we don't address the vines, this is just the nuisance, weeds, the grass. No falling, they don't have to remove the fallen trees or anything like that on here.
Yeah,
we should
no,
have
I
fallen
would
trees.
like to consider Mr. Bruno's suggestions, just to make it more, less appearance of the pettiness, that's all. And John raised a good point.
Susan?
Would John be interested in working with Dustin to
Sure.
work out the complexities of this?
I was thinking about Mr. Bruno working with Dustin to work out the complexities.
I think council should do it.
Not for
But-
approval, but just for understanding.
But I would be
how
glad,
this
I would be
concerns.
glad to sit down also with him.
I think it should be the three of them, probably.
Possible.
Yeah,
Can we
yeah.
get a head nod from the audience? Would you agree to that, Mr. Bruno, or we? Sure.
You just volunteered.
You just volunteered without pay.
Any more questions?
I think it's a good start, Dustin, it really is. So.
Okay.
Okay, and then we'll have a product, when we get a product, we'll put it back on the agenda. The new business, 7A, consideration to begin 18-19 budget process in January.
Mr. Mayor, just to get the discussion underway, I would like to file a motion to have a quarterly planning session beginning in January in order to have workshops and to organize and prioritize agenda items and to discuss any issues regarding any issue. It'll be a workshop, there'll be no votes, it'll be public, and hopefully they shouldn't last more than an hour or two.
You said to discuss any issue, you mean any issue at all, or just issues related to
Well,
budgeting?
if issues, for example, if someone wanted to bring up the issue of discussing this in more detail, they'd be more than welcome, I think.
But
I don't
you-
think that
you-
would be restrictive.
You seem to be limiting it to budgeting issues, money issues. You
No,
said
I think-
anything.
I think anything on the
Well,
upcoming agenda is
Mr.
fine.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
I-
wait, do I have
I
a second?
forget, I
We need a
realize
motion. Do we have a second?
talking to a lawyer.
Do we have the second to the motion?
I second, it should be on agenda
Well,
items,
well,
just
well,
not budget
Well,
items.
second, you seconded it, so now we can discuss it. Susan?
I'm trying to figure out if this is a budget planning meeting
No,
that you're
no,
trying
no,
to, okay.
I thought I clarified that.
If I could add something here, I had the flavor from some council people, I don't know that, and I don't mean to speak for everybody, that there was an interest in revisiting how we basically conduct our meetings, in that the evening meeting would be specifically for action, and the Tuesday morning meetings would be for more of a workshop, but would still be available if some action had to be taken. But the primary objective would be discussion and working these things out, which would occur every single month.
So instead of a third meeting, you would say the morning meeting would be that workshop.
Right. The Tuesday meeting morning, like today, where you hassle out the workshop issues, and you don't take action unless there's some reason why you immediately have to take
A
action.
very time-sensitive issue,
A
something like that.
time-sensitive issue, yes.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think
have a problem with
what,
that.
That's what I understood the flavor for the council was.
I agree with that.
I agree with that
Yeah,
also.
I
We used to
like
do
that
that.
idea to try that out, to work it out.
Yes.
Rather than, I do not like the idea of adding additional workshops until we get way down to the budget line when we have to meet every day.
Would that meet what your issues are?
no, I was thinking of a quarterly workshop meeting.
So four
One
times a
meeting.
year, Rich, right?
One meeting every 3 months.
So you'd have, every 3 months, you'd have 3 meetings in a month.
Yep.
I could see that possibly happening only if the goal is to get back to the 2 meetings a month, the second one being a workshop. If we have to have workshops to work our way back into getting to the 2 meetings a month, that's the only way I would.
Well,
accept
see, I would go the different way, is that we try the mixed meeting of we act on time-sensitive items that can't wait another 2 weeks to be taken care of, and then we do in a workshop mode, and we find out if we can't cover the issues and keep ourselves moving forward in that way, then we consider an extraordinary workshop meeting
Lisa, is
scheduled.
that illegal to do that? If it's not on the agenda, we put it on late at that day to vote on it and public doesn't know
No,
about
there
it?
has
No,
to,
no.
you'd have to say, if there's an agenda item for discussion, you'd have to say, and possible action to follow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the idea would be, if we're doing workshops, is to discuss it, to think about it, to figure out what other research needs to be done, what other facts need to be brought back in, and tee it up so that we can then go to a Monday evening meeting to go for a vote and a decision, rather than having the discussion take place on the Monday evening.
John,
I
John,
agree with
okay.
that.
I agree with John, but can we just, the first 2 workshops, have that at the beginning of the year to set the agenda for the whole year? Because maybe just the first quarter of January, we have 1 workshop to set the agenda, and then from then on, the second meeting, the morning meeting, will be a workshop /
Well, what I'm saying is we take the 23 January meeting and put on there to set the agenda for the rest of the year, or to the extent that we can. I think it'd be somewhat difficult.
Well, the
I don't
problem,
like the idea of adding extra meetings. That's,
Yeah.
I don't like the idea of that either. I think
Susan
it used,
tried to say something.
Right.
oh,
One
I'm
of the
sorry, go ahead,
things-
Susan.
one of the
Wait.
things that we have to avoid is 3-hour council meetings.
I think everybody's in agreement with you there,
Yes,
including everybody in the audience.
And it's how we do that, and kicking issues down the road continuously,
Susan?
instead of resolving them.
If we're going to do that, can we start in February? Because I planned a vacation last June to be gone the 23rd, because we were normally going to meet on the 18th, and that just changed with the calendar. So I will not be here on the 23rd.
I have no problem doing that.
Okay, okay.
So you mean the second meeting in February would
Yes.
be the
Wait a minute.
workshop designated meeting that we are
Yes,
to
So
talk
the
about,
20th.
work through the rest.
yeah, whatever it is.
So
yeah.
we're gonna have a regular council meeting the 23rd, I'm sorry,
Right.
January 8th, January 23rd, and then what?
5th.
February 5th,
will
regular
be the
meeting.
evening
And
meeting.
then February 20th, a workshop.
Whoa. And what? February 20th, the workshop, which would have been the second council meeting.
Correct.
So we're gonna have 1 workshop and 1 council meeting.
In February.
I'm willing to try anything, but we've had experiences before in workshops where they were council meetings, and that's why we have Tuesday council meetings.
Well, that, we have
So
to.
we have to be careful not
Yes,
to do
no, we
that.
definitely have to be judicious as to how we handle it.
Yeah,
And the care was to identify for the morning meetings.
Right.
If there are time-sensitive issues that will not go and be
Right.
delayed until the following Monday
Okay.
evening meeting.
All right, but there's a motion on the floor with a second. Do you want to withdraw the motion for the quarterly meeting at this point?
can I amend the motion?
Withdraw it and do a new motion.
Well,
Or shall I just withdraw the motion?
I just withdraw the motion.
All right,
'cause-
I'll withdraw the motion, Mr.
Okay,
Mayor.
that doesn't prejudice you from bringing it up later. It doesn't prejudice you from bringing it up later. And you as a second don't mind his withdrawal, do you?
No.
Okay. The next item agenda is Councilman Serrato's memo dated December 3. That was the memo, I think we talked about the items. What I'm going to go over here is the items that are highlighted. One says this document is for discussion while we're discussing. 2, confirmation date, time schedule for January workshop meeting. I think we just discussed that.
Right,
To place the North Jinks Creek dredging program as an agenda item for immediate resolution before continuing with this costly study. Now, this also addresses some of the other issues that in the memo. Let me go back a step. My understanding was that we were going to take this memo and assign dates for the items on future agendas as the things we wanted from this memo on future agendas. Everybody on the same page with that? Not necessarily discuss them right now, but
no, no.
assign the
no.
dates.
No,
Okay.
They're basically for example, when you ask for the upcoming agenda review, for the agenda 8th meeting, I had dredging Jinks Creek, reactivating the ERC committee, conflict of interest policy, sunset at sunset, and fire department cabana feedback.
Right, well, we'll get to those at the end of this meeting when
Yeah.
we set the one thing that I do want to, it's in here, but I don't know that it's specified. I've had meetings with Bonnie Bray, the finance director, and she and I met with Councilman Serrato and provided information to him, discussion as well as the written information, which has been shared with the rest of the council as to the status of, the current status of the municipal finances with regard to all of the funds, also the status of, from a monetary point of view, of the costs of dredging, and a report as to Sunset at Sunset, the town park completion, and the living shoreline. They were all, copies of those were all shared with council. Does anybody have any questions with regard to those at this point in time?
No.
No, I think Bonnie did a terrific job with that snapshot, puts everything on one page and answers many questions, and it also raises a couple of questions.
Bob, maybe I could ask Susan a question. Susan, why is the whole dredging clumped into one number instead of what's the cost of Turtle Creek, Mary Creek, Jinks Creek, and the
Because
canals?
We didn't know what that would be, and we still don't know what that be until we get a final design and the final, you never know until you do the bid. And he did his probable cost based on linear foot and depth. Now that even those depths and the linear width have changed, that number has changed too. We haven't asked him to do that. It wouldn't be the staff that would do that. That would be our consultant that would do that.
Right.
Moffett would do that.
Yes.
And it will change because of lineal depth on certain
It'll
canals are
change
different.
if any of the project from the, this started over 2 years ago, so the project has changed since
yeah.
that initial grant request. So if we would like a revised funding analysis, we can ask that of Robert.
The questions people are asking me, of the 1,200 feet of Jinks Creek, who's going to pay for that, since there's no residents on Jinks Creek?
You haven't had that discussion yet.
The answer to that is, we don't know. First of all, you don't know what's going to be permitted to be dredged.
Right. When will those
if
answers
any.
be?
And secondly, you don't know what the cost, now we could have an estimated cost, you don't know what the cost is. And there are considerations, it's relatively complicated when we talk about Jinks Creek. It's not, there's two different, there's North Jinks Creek,
Right.
and in my mind, I'm using North Jinks Creek from Riverside Drive north and
Right.
south from Riverside south. There are different dynamics that would go, and the council has to make that decision. But we can't make it, and we can't even approach it until we know if we're going to be able to do it and what we're going to be able to do.
When will those answers be available for us?
Well, we're
Sorry.
working with the state right now. I don't feel comfortable giving you a date because you just received an update from him last week. So
Yeah.
that gives you the status of where we
You
are.
know,
Councilwoman?
I think we need to have that discussion, period.
We need a-
before.
we
We
need
need to
a
have
frank
that
discussion.
discussion soon.
Absolutely.
Because the people in this town want to know the answer to that. And we can give them an answer to that. Who is going to pay for it? Even though we don't know how much it's going to be, we can certainly tell them who's going to pay for it. And I think we need to have that discussion, and soon.
Well,
we've had a couple of comments from the council, from the previous council. One is the town will pay for it, part of it, and the other is the homeowners will pay for it. I have some personal concerns regarding dredging Jinks Creek. And we're doing costly studies. It's been a continuing program. We've been studying it for 2 years. And I think we need to we have to have a frank discussion. What are we doing? Where are we going? I don't want to spend $800,000 and then find out that we're not going to dredge Jinks Creek and waste all that money, whether it's state money or town money, which we pay a third of, and having all these studies done and meetings and scoping meetings, and knowing that if it is approved, if the permit is approved, we're no doubt going to have a lawsuit from environmental groups. So we need to understand where we're going, what we're doing, before we dedicate any more effort and any more money to this project.
well, I disagree with that wholeheartedly. It's not $800,000 more that we're going to spend. We're at the end of the rope on our contract with Moffett and Nichols is $377,000 total, of which we have paid the town has paid about $112,000. The rest has come from the grant. There are decisions, there are facts that this is not a knee-jerk, visceral reaction as to whether Jinks Creek can be or cannot be dredged. It is not something that you can say without the sufficient information to say whether it's going to be dredged or it's not going to be dredged. And the reason I say that is, I know and I recognize that there are some people that say it should never be dredged, and it's impossible to be dredged for a number of reasons. I recognize that. And you're never going to convince those people otherwise, regardless of who says or what expert says that you're going to be able to do it.
Well, that goes
Wait,
to both sides.
Can I
of the
finish, please?
issue.
Can I finish? You're right. I mean, where I was going with it is and I've expressed this individually to members of council. If the project, we have to know what the project is going to be. If the project is worth doing, we have to figure out a way to do it and take into consideration the concerns of those that oppose certain aspects of it, and those that are in favor of certain aspects of it, if it's going to be done. That and it's my own personal philosophy is there's a way to do everything. And there's a way, and as I've expressed individually to council members, that my approach to government is the same as approach to marriage, that it's a compromise. That you gotta give up some things that you would rather not give up in order to get things that you do, and both sides have to do that. It's not one way. And it's solving some of those issues have to be by compromise. And we can't get there until we know the answers. And otherwise, you're making decisions in a vacuum.
But Bob, I understand that, Bob, but do we have a timetable? A year from now, 6 months from now?
Susan?
I'm just waiting.
Go ahead.
So go ahead.
What I recommend, because I can't answer those questions because I'm not intimately involved in the application process or the shellfish survey at this time. What I do recommend, and this is a perfect item for a planning session, is to find out Robert's availability either in the second meeting in January or the second meeting in February, where we can ask him, one, what's the status of all this? What's the status of the shellfish? What are the status of the applications? Because you know we have 3 different applications going forward because we divided up the project. Ask them about the financial estimated costs. Ask them about the different financial funding models for that and how it can be applied and what's allowable under North Carolina law.
I think that's a good idea, and what I suggest is that everybody, each member of council, write down the questions that they would want Mr. Neal to address, so that he has them and is prepared to be able to answer them when we set that up. But don't submit them to us, submit them to Lisa.
Bob, I think,
The question that I still have, and I think the people of this town have, Mr. Neal can't answer, who is going to pay for this project? Some of this project are canal property owners who benefit directly.
And if
A
I could-
big portion of
if I
it
could
is
interject there,
not.
if I could
And I
inter-
don't understand why we can't give them an answer.
Well, if I can interject, the primary canal owner is the town. On Mary's Creek, no, I shouldn't say canal, on Mary's Creek, the primary owner is the town. So the town, if there's gonna be an allocation of expense, the town's gonna have an expense at least for Mary's Creek.
Right, I understand that.
A concern that I have, and I've expressed it to you all, is that if North Jinks Creek is going to be dredged, there are no houses on North Jinks Creek. And is it really fair and equitable to assess a canal owner for the costs of North Jinks Creek? Or is the town going to pick it up? I don't have an answer to that, but it's a question that has to be answered. But it's moot if North Jinks Creek is not going to be dredged.
Bob, you mentioned that we have to find out if it's worth it. And I look at what I know now. Dredging Jinks Creek is 49% of the cost. Is it worth spending millions of dollars, Sunset Beach taxpayer money, 1/3, and the state grant, 2/3, which may be exceeded, just to have navigable creek during low tide? To me, this is a business question, and it's a need question. This is not primarily a boating community. This is a beach and golf community. There's less than 160 people that have registered boats in this town.
That
And
list is incorrect. Excuse
Well,
me, sorry to interrupt.
Then,
That was
no,
wrong.
no, then get a new list, okay? Get a new list.
Rich,
It's a business
I
question,
take,
Bob.
I take substantial issues with your analysis and what you're saying. I don't think today, this morning, is the time to argue with what
No.
you say.
But what I'm point is, we need a frank discussion.
Well, I think Susan's suggestion is the way to get there, is to have Mr. Neal come in and give us, and whatever your concerns are, put them down on paper, get them to Lisa so that he can answer them, and then at a workshop meeting, we can beat that to death. But we're not going to resolve it here today.
I agree with you,
Understand
Bob.
that, and that's not the intent.
I
Okay.
don't,
And so does everybody agree? And-
Yes.
And when I say that, I want to see, I want to see that you communicate in writing to Lisa what your concerns are. And I'm emphasizing to Lisa what your concerns are, so Mr. Neal can have them, and we can have a worthwhile discussion with him when he gets here. I don't mean to diminish the fact that people are concerned about it, or whether it's, how much it's going to cost, or whether the town should be paying for, or what they should be paying for. I recognize that, but we got to get to the point where we can do it. Okay, so if you would, we'll contact him for his availability, and we'll set up a workshop meeting with Mr. Neal, and we get all of our concerns to Lisa. And after we've had that, then we can get into this even deeper.
Mr. Mayor?
I think that one item, though, is that when we do have that workshop, town administrator should be present also.
Oh, no, I agree with you. I don't, well, I don't contemplate that would be at Mr. Neal's presentation, if it's going to be on the
I'm
23rd.
assuming it's gonna be a public meeting.
Oh, would it have to be a
It has
public?
to be a public meeting.
Second.
All right, keeping to the agenda,
Excuse
This-
me. I hadn't a chance to comment on that.
okay,
I
I'm sorry.
don't see how you can make any decisions without having all the numbers. And I think it's unfair to everybody to throw some numbers out there that it's gonna cost the taxpayers 800,000 or millions of dollars. It's unfair. It gives the wrong perception to the public. No one knows what it's gonna cost yet.
I understand, and that's one reason why I spent the time, because I've been here virtually every single day with Bonnie to come up with this analysis to provide everybody as to what the current fund situation is. The next item on the agenda is concerning the climate control agendas. That's we're going to carry to the 23rd?
Yes.
Okay. The next item is review agenda items, identify new agenda items for the January 8th meeting. What we have so far, if I can find my second page, is nothing. We're going to have I can't remember my, yeah, okay, I can't read my writing. ABC appointment, I have a fire down here with a question mark. What we're going to do with fire?
What was it? Staff.
Oh, for the staffing discussion? You want to do that on the 8th?
Yes.
Okay, because
What's
the
that part?
23rd is going to be an agenda meeting. You want to take action on it on the 28th, on the 8th? All right, that would be the 23rd then.
I can't hear you, Mark.
Yeah, we
We're
can't.
moving it, what I said is, if we put it on the 8th is going to be an action meeting.
Well,
The
put what on
23rd,
the 8th? That's what we didn't hear.
Discussion of the fire staffing.
Oh, okay.
If it's going to be a discussion, it should be for the 23rd, which is going to be the agenda meeting.
Correct.
I mean, agenda,
Workshop.
workshop. All right, so the 8th, we do have Mr. Councilman Serrato's request for the ERC, about the ERC committee. He has a request about the legal conflict of interest policy. The sunset at sunset. Okay. Anything else before Susan?
Is Dustin coming back with the 93 one or?
That depends on.
It's not going to happen by January 8th, guarantee you.
What's that?
I'll put it on when they send it a final draft.
That's reviewing the nuisance
Oh, yeah,
regulation.
yeah.
That will not happen
Yeah,
that
done, John?
quickly. Right.
All right, Susan, you were going to,
Just two things, excuse me. On the ERC committee is still
It's
in
still active.
place. And the members of that committee resigned. And I think the cleanest way to reactivate, quote unquote, is to give us direction to advertise for that and allow it open to any members of the community to apply for it.
Well, I didn't want to get into a discussion about it, but my suggestion is before you even do that, there has to be a substantial adoption of substantial rules and regulations that everybody knows and understands for the operation of the ERC, even before you advertise for it, that we have to agree on, that the council has to agree on, so we don't run into issues that we ran into the
So
last
won't we put that on the workshop on the 23rd to discuss?
time. That's fine for me.
Well, we do have a mission statement already.
Yeah, but you saw what happened with that.
We can go, we'll tweak it on the 23rd, Rich. Or workshop.
Susan?
The second item, I have a question regarding the fire department feedback. It's my understanding that the chief already gave the feedback on the cabanas and tents. Is there additional information, just for
Yeah,
clarification?
that was on your memo, Rich, you say, for fire department feedback concerning the 2017 cabana experience. That was a presentation, a public presentation of that in
I
October.
don't recall anything about a detailed discussion about cabanas. Am I wrong? Did I mishear something?
There was.
Yes.
What we can do is we can set up a meeting with the chief and you, just to give you an update on what was presented
All
to the
right.
council.
I mean, because we had a whole list of issues last year that we don't seem to have this year.
Most of those were discussed, or
I
the
don't
existence or
recall.
the
Honestly,
absence
Bob, I
were
don't
discussed
recall.
back, I think it was October. No.
No, we have,
No. All right. Now is the opportunity for public comment on anything. Anybody wants to make a public comment, please step forward, state your name and address, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Karen?
Karen Joseph, 915 Sandpiper Bay Drive. I need some clarification, Mr. Mayor. Are you discussing Mr. Serrato's recommendation regarding Sunset at Sunset at the January 8 meeting? Or are you putting that on the January 23rd meeting?
My notes said it was for the 8th. Do we want it on the 8th? On the 8th.
Okay. The committee was certainly hoping that we would get some notion from this council today regarding this item, since the work of the committee begins in January. So thank you for the answer.
Thank you. Other public comment? None appearing. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
so move.
All those in favor?
Second.